What you talking about, bro?
You got the bag with the shirts on? Where's the black bag?
4, 3, 2.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is We Don't Need Permission, back with another episode 7. Altorice is in the building. What's going on, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to understand why Cindy ain't already got the sanitizer movement going on.
Right.
He ain't obviously offer you nothing. So how you doing, guys? I'm here. You already know, one day at a time. We got the brother Hollywood in the building. Hollywood, talk to him.
Hollywood.
What's going on, man?
He didn't leave the state this
Right.
Nah.
He don't know what it's like to be home. He ain't used to it. What's going on, man?
Nah, y'all actually ran into my neighbor.
I was about to say, I was going to let you put it out there. I don't put grown folk business out there.
You guys run into my neighbor. So I'm, again, as I always start off with, just grateful to God to be here. Grateful to God for my neighbor. Like, right? I love that lady, Miss G. Like, for you guys to come over and for her to tell you guys that I'm Hollywood, and you guys know already that I think I'm Hollywood. So I'm just grateful to be here.
Miss G will be on the podcast. So
Right. Shout out, Miss G.
Shout out, Miss G.
We love you.
We'll be
Look,
here,
we got to patrol, this guy.
Yeah.
We got to
Miss G
patrol.
was a Newark public school teacher for like 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Retired. Yeah.
She was teaching right there.
Yeah.
I was listening. You the one ain't paying no attention.
Right.
I was listening. Well, who we got here today? We got our brother here, man.
Tommy Luna, what's going on, man?
How y'all doing?
What's good, man?
I'm good. Very similar sentiments. Woke up, could move, could see, could hear, had a house, had a bed. Get to work with kids every day,
Right.
especially during this time. So I'm living a great life.
Right.
I'm very appreciative and blessed for it.
Tommy, everybody in America don't know you as they should.
Right.
And everybody in Newark don't know you as they gonna. Yet, tell us a little bit about who you are, man. How you?
Yeah, I mean, how far back you want me to go?
Nah, just give us a little something, man. You know how you do, man. Just introduce. We got all night. We here for
Oh,
an hour.
yeah.
It's here. It's you tonight. We're gonna dig into some energy around how you move and why you move. But before we get there, is a reason how you got to moving like that.
Right.
We want to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Tommy Luna. Been here for about 10 years now. I'm a teacher. I teach 8th grade math. I've been teaching at Rise Academy in the West Ward for a while now. Only 8th grade. I love them. They're knuckleheads, and they dish it, and I can dish it too, and we have a great time doing that. In that time, I've also been in various leadership positions right now. In addition to teaching, I also coach, which means I'm teaching teachers how to teach, which has been a really, really good time, even though we've been remote. I've done a number of extracurricular activities with Rise. Outside of that, I'm co-chair
Tommy, real quick, Tommy, because Hollywood all over the country, so everybody don't know where you talking about and where you at when you say here and there. So let them understand that a little bit.
Yeah.
He everywhere. He in Atlanta. Like, I'm just being real.
No, here is home. Home I consider Newark, New Jersey. That is where I'm at. Originally from Texas. If we're gonna go there, been here in Newark for 10 years, and outside of teaching, been working with a number of people from around the city to organize, to collectively get there.
What's your background?
I mean, tell me more.
Your racial makeup.
Oh, I am Chicano, which is Mexican American.
I just want to be.
Yeah. No. I mean, we're gonna go. That's why I was like, how far back do you want to go?
So I think that's one of the things that's dope about you, Tommy. I really do. Like, once I found that you were a Mexican American, Tommy has his own unique perspective on the fight in this country, right? As a Latino American, as a Mexican American from Texas, right? Like, come on, as we hear about all the border issues, all these. So to be such an advocate for justice, I just started to put certain things together. Like, okay, and then I get a little bit about his background, like that fire that comes from Tommy, like.
Right.
Oh yeah. And fun fact, I mean, the premise isn't that fun. My grandmother passed recently from COVID, and when we looked at her birth certificates, we found out, one, she lied about what day she was born, but two, she is originally from Mexico. She's from Chihuahua, and when I asked my dad about that, he didn't really know. Right? When I asked my uncles about that, we found out that she immigrated here illegally. but started the family that would eventually become all the Lunas that we have in Texas. And that is a part of the history that I didn't know.
Wow.
Because I know that my other family came from Guerrero, which is a great story for another time. But knowing that, I was just like, there is so much more to the story. And it just, like, to your point, increase my personal fervor for the things that are happening that affect my people down in Texas, my people across the border, and just being able to say my people, right? Like that is a beautiful thing to say, and it's from the kind of family and community that we brought up. Got to spend the last 6 months in Texas because we've been remote. I told everybody it was really good for the soul. It was bad for the waistline. That is why I'm wearing a hoodie. This is all that fits me. But it was really good to connect with family that I hadn't seen, with my siblings. I'm the oldest of 4. Both of them, 2 of them are in college, one of them still in high school, and I got to know them as young adults, which was really, really, really cool.
Really cool.
And they got to see me in a bunch of Zoom meetings and doing this and doing that. They were like, "You do this all the time?" I'm like, Yes, I do. Right? You see all this coffee, but that was really good. I really, really enjoyed that time, and now I'm back. I'm here, and ready for the next wave of things that we are going to do.
So if I could, man, Tommy, talk to me a little bit. Talk to us all a little bit of why, like you said, you back. That fire is burning. Where that fire come from? We know you. We know you in Texas. We know the energy of obviously your brown brother and the energy of the fight. But where did the burn in the fight? What happened?
Because Tommy really is we don't need permission.
Right.
He personifies we don't need permission.
Definitely.
So growing up, right, my parents are divorced, and they worked multiple jobs to keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
Worked a lot. And growing up, I didn't have any role models or something. I wanted to be like my parents.
Right.
And the only thing that they did was work a lot. And so I was like, well, I want to work too. And the only thing that I could work at was school. And so I worked really hard and got good at school. And then as I got that, I got a lot of opportunities that were really awesome: debate, band, baseball, whatever. They were free, right?
Yes.
Very important. Didn't have a lot. Didn't have anything. They were free.
Exactly.
And a lot of that got me exposed to some of the things in the world, right? When I did debate, I did student congress, I did foreign extemp, I did original oratory, and I did Lincoln Douglas, right? And I did all 4, went to nationals, did all this stuff, and Congress was really what opened my eyes, right? We were talking about Social Security, we were talking about border, we're talking about foreign stuff, and that, for me, was a place where I was just like, okay, there are platforms in this world that you can say things, and something else happens, right? Fast forward a little bit later, I'm in college, became president of the dorms there. I went to Texas State University, San Marcos, 50,000 students when I was there. Became president of all the dorms, and went to bat on a number of things, specifically around tuition and how much it costs. Because if you're me and you're on Pell Grants and you're on scholarship, and that's all the money that you have, you should not be increasing prices, right? And Texas State at that time was about to become a Hispanic Serving Institute, which meant more federal funding was going to come. And so we had to make sure that, 1, it was going to the right way, and 2, the right way mean it didn't increase cost to students. Took that to become the vice president of the university, and we had a huge fight with the chief of police. He wanted to pass some policies that essentially targeted college kids, right? If you're in a group, you're already loud, you're going to go to jail, you're going to get a fine, but we were like, no. And so I used what pool I had. We crammed City Hall, we picketed, we did all the things in the name of students, and we won. And that I can point to the moment where I was like, cool, national politics are neat, local politics are sexy. That was the moment that I will never forget, and that is why, whenever I came up here to New Jersey, I wanted to figure out where I could call home. Because whatever place I was going to call home, I'm like, cool, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to get my voice out there, get whatever skills I have to make sure that people are taken care of, that we're doing the right things by people and no one's getting screwed over. Right? Is that going to happen? Of course. But those experiences, and especially that moment where we won, are the reasons where any space I enter, I'm just like, what's going on, what are the rules, who made the rules, well, who do the rules serve, and how do you change them, right? And if you ask those questions over and over, you eventually get to something that's going to be a solution to a variety of issues.
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any pickers in your family?
Not directly.
Okay.
My uncle is a farmer.
Okay.
He started out with a little ranch and then eventually expanded, and he does potatoes for Frito-Lay.
Because the stories to me of the pickers, I just think it's modern day slavery. And my heart goes out to those parents.
Mm.
It's because it's just literally immigrants
Yeah.
who just want a better way for their kids, right? Like, and I just, like, there's a movie about it, and it just really changed my whole perspective on it, right? Like, and it just really showed me, like, it just really made me think about my grandparents from Georgia, my great-grandparents, who actually had to be sharecroppers, like, and then the generations before them that were actually slaves, and just, like, everything. And so, my heart goes out to the Mexican-American community, because I know, literally, they're doing the same thing that some people in these streets got accused for, because that's just the opportunity that's before them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just taking whatever the opportunities before them and trying to make a better way for the next generation, the best way that they know how, right?
Mhm.
And that's the same thing that happens to a lot of my friends, right? With lack of opportunity, lack of exposure, and you talk about an immigrant with lack of documentation, lack of like being able to access the resources that are available, right?
Language barriers.
Language, but everything. And then people just take advantage of that, right? Full advantage of that. And like I said, it was just, so therefore by the grace of God go I, you know I always say that, and I just think of my great-great-grandparents and earlier generations of my family. So it's always just something that I know every day, like as we eat our vegetables, as we eat, like as you take, and one of the things that really made me look at this was during the avocado shortage. There was an avocado shortage a couple of years ago, and like we take avocados so like for granted, right? But like there was an avocado shortage where like it was becoming dangerous for pickers on the West Coast.
That avocado, we're gonna have a whole discussion on that because it's people in Chile who have a whole nother perspective on why they got to pay for water, dealing with those companies that own those distribution and farming of avocados all throughout, you know, the middle Central America and even in South America. So that's a whole nother element, and you can check out the documentary on Netflix where it breaks that down. How that, to your point, just not that shortage, like no, it's actual industry who are violating humans,
Right?
And their natural habitat of living, where there's people in Chile who have to pay for the natural water that's in their community because it's owned by the companies that deal with the avocados and the selling distribution across the world. So these companies came in and bought the water out of these countries because they were from deals, you know. We was over here in Newark just talking about selling water a couple of years ago, you know. So they actually doing that in those other countries. So that's crazy. But talk to me, Tommy, if you could share, you know, as you were saying, what you seen and what burned you that fire. Talk to us about the energy of how you realized that a solo Jedi ain't gonna get it done.
Now, I think if you look towards anything that has gotten done from a people perspective, right?
Right.
It's never by one person, right? It's never by one person. There isn't a moment in history that I can think of. Please push back if you can, where it's just one person that is fighting like a positional power or an establishment power or something that requires change. And seeing that early on, right? I can go back to in college. I can go back to in high school when we were doing some stuff. Bush was the governor before he became president there. And there was a lot of stuff about standard of living. It taught me early on, like, cool, the more people you have, the better, right? And again, as I looked and as I learned, there isn't a place where that is not true. The only time that is true is if someone who has all the cards wants to do something that's going to give them even more cards and more, right?
Okay.
Because you have to take that away from
That's it.
something, and you have the ability to shuffle that hand however you want to, right? That is the only time it works. But if you're trying to beat that, if you're trying to flip over the table, right, then it requires more hands to do it, because that's a heavy table for people to lift up by themselves.
You brought up something to me that is critical to it shaped my form of thinking, right? And I'm glad, like, because I can't have this conversation with a lot of people, but there's actually books on this, right? The Lincoln-Douglas debates. And the Lincoln-Douglas debates actually challenged me to think outside the box, right? Because everybody wanted to, like, there's different thoughts of thinking on Lincoln, right? And when you go through those debates, when you go through his wording, he, like, talk about somebody who had to have a singular point of view, right? But then had to find a way to build coalitions because of what he centrally believed, that a house divided would fall. Centrally. That was his whole premise of his argument. Premise of the Bible is a house divided will fall, right? Like, there's no division that will let ultimately you reach your goal if that house is divided. So and once you said that, it just, like, literally rang off in my head that's got to be one of the key parts of who you are. And, like, I know we don't give a lot of credit, and a lot of times people don't give a lot of credit to it, but I really want people to understand how important those Lincoln-Douglas debates were for this country and were for shaping an argument for somebody who had to convince others to join a bandwagon that really wasn't a popular bandwagon, right? Like, but he had to stay steadfast on an argument that he believed in that was bigger than that individual or saying free the slaves, right? So, Lincoln didn't really want to free the slaves. Like, you can't say that, because that argument wasn't going to work at the time for the people. A house divided will fall is an argument that was going to work.
They're not saying that because it should have been a number one argument. They're saying that because that's true. He didn't want to free the slaves. He freed the slaves because, to your point, that was the glue that had to keep the energy together. Because at the end of the day, he just wanted to keep America together. He just wanted to keep the Union together.
The Union. Preserve the Union.
That's it. But by the time 1863, no, he did have to sit down and with Douglas and them and have to come to understand, because he was losing the war. Not because he wanted to free slaves.
No.
So we got to. I'm listening,
the war.
but I'm trying to see the side where that man did not come into his presidency or any state wanting to free slaves. He didn't want to keep expanding it, and he didn't want the Union to split for it. It split once he became president. He wanted to bring it back together. He spent 3 years trying. It didn't happen. They was losing the war. He had to bring Bankston to come fight in the war. How he was going to do that unless he freed the slaves? So we got we got to be really, because 200,000 black people came into the army in 1863 to boost up the Union, because they were being slaughtered across the country back then between the first beginning of the war. They were losing. The Confederates were winning. And Lincoln had to do that to bring in reinforcements into his army. He didn't just let them go, just free the slaves because that was a part of his ever mission. No.
But what I'm saying, so my premise in my premise of we don't need permission, right, is not to go to a governor, not to go to a mayor, not to go to a financial institution and say, help me because we're distressed. It's saying create that argument that says, if you don't help me, you're going to lose. That's, to me, we don't need permission. So that's where I always go back to Lincoln, is because there are some arrogant men in this country that will cut off their nose to spite their face. And he came to a point where he decided he wasn't going to do that.
Look what the dude right after them did. Dude right after him did almost got impeached because he was also like, nah. Everybody in the South, y'all come back, kiss the ring, y'all get all your property back, bump everything, y'all good. Oh, the North is like, time out. We just fought a war. We about to get everything back. And for 10 years they fought on that. And what happened after 10 years after Reconstruction? They did get everything back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
they did get everything back.
So it's like, that's what we, and I know I'm not here to debate the energy because I don't know the whole but certain things, man, we gotta respect that how it's lined itself up. Pressure bust pipes or shine a diamond. The pressure of him winning the war was the free slaves, bro. If he didn't have to do it, he wouldn't have did it. If he could have won the war and got the Union back together without freeing the slaves, because remember, the war started in 1861.
But
he
I'm
didn't
coming-
do it to 1863.
But you
2
understand,
years.
You do understand that I'm a person that's coming from that. I just believe it's all God, because one of my favorite movies in the world is Glory. One of my favorite movies in the world is Glory. All right, and I watch that religiously. Denzel, like people talk about Denzel's acting.
Why he always get an Oscar when he do something? It's a villain when he get his back beat off.
Right. No, but Denzel was us. Denzel was you, bro. You.
I'm talking about how they honored him with the war. But all other movies he did.
But he played that role because that
He played Malcolm and they didn't give it to him.
Right.
He played the guy on the pole getting whipped and he got Oscar.
No, but he was much more than that. He was much more than that.
No, he was much more. Boss. I know that. But
To me-
but once again, look when they choose, because the Academy Award chooses
when you're in.
Why all the movies that man did, those are the two he got the Academy Award for.
Listen, I just thank God it wasn't the one that gave it to who was the butler for the general. Thank God they didn't give him the award, right, for best supporting actor. Like,
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
no, not Forrest
Forrest
Whitaker.
Whitaker got an Oscar.
No, not for the butler. I'm talking about the guy who was actually the butler of the general. Remember the general that be in Robert Lee. Remember Robert Lee, the general, right? Remember the black guy that worked in his family that became a part of the Denzel Alden calls him Snowflake. Would ride him.
I ain't seen that movie.
Glory's a great movie.
No, you said Glory?
Glory.
No, wait. What are you talking about? You said who?
I'm talking about the general of the troop, right?
The Union.
Of the Union, right? Robert Lee. He was from Massachusetts, right? There was a black guy that was from his that worked within his family that actually enlisted.
Oh no, you talking about old boy from
And I said, I thank God the Academy didn't give him the award.
Yeah.
Because that's the one they typically would have wanted to give the award to.
He was the one that could read. Boy, he came down there with that reading, bro. Okay. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, my man. Yeah, I forget that brother name. He's an actor too.
He's a great actor. Great actor. He played that role very well. To the point where when he got shot, you even mourn for him because you realize that he had became the awakening, right? Even though he could read, even though he had come from a free side, right? Even though these guys were slaves, I'm still a nigga, and I'm still them. But at one point, living in Boston at the time, he thought he was a little bit better, right? Until he came down, started moving to the South, where all that reading didn't matter. And it only mattered when he began to empower the rest of that group.
You know what's crazy?
And they began to move forward as a whole group, as a unit.
Even
because they worked on his marching, his shooting, where he helped on their reading and their writing, right?
But I love where you're going with that because it segues way back to what we were talking about with Tommy and that whole energy around not being a solo Jedi. Where at the end of the day, all those black people were free, or like the gentleman you speaking of, he was already free. He came and enlisted and got down with the way he didn't have to. So you got all those different type of black people. That's why when people are like, who's the black leader? Like, it's no one black leader. Like, all those different leaders in their own space came and joined this war, got together, and they had their differences. They was beefing. Denzel went to slap him up a couple times. But what happened at the end of the day when it was really time to go to war and it was really time to strap up and get loose? They started coming together with singing. They coming with God. They created they started organizing the energy that it was going to take to get out there and go fight these individuals who they trying to get their freedom from. And that's the part where I was going, where trying to having all the will you want and all the desire you want to change the game. If you aiming to do it by yourself, that long, almost impossible road to get to that, could really take you out of the game, could jade you out the game. But people like you who've come from Texas, who come from, an ethnic background where obviously we've been discriminated on thoroughly and even presently. So it's like now you over here in New Jersey, Newark, you bring that energy of organizing, you bring that energy of information and the different things that you bring to the table. So talk to us now. What where you at with that and over here in Newark? You're teaching for 10 years. You're seeing some things going on. Obviously, in those 10 years, where you at now in this city of Newark that you call home?
Yeah. I think one, trying to get out of our lease because our landlord's terrible.
Put that down.
She's terrible. She's terrible. Trying to get out of the lease for. That's what.
That's
it is.
next month.
But
landlord in front of us. That's what I said. There's
like,
landlord in front
there you
of
go.
us.
See, no, I mean, right now with NEED, the organization that I co-chair, we're trying. We're passing this policy to talk about a vacancy.
What's the name of the organization?
NEED, Newark for Educational Equity and Diversity.
Right, and just give us the background of how you came into and what they are and who they are.
Yeah, NEED is grassroots organizing that is designed to change the status quo. It is very action-oriented. If we're not changing anything, we didn't do anything, right? We're not going to go march unless there's a direct action or reaction from that. We're not going to canvass unless there's a direct action or reaction from that. And what we look for are those wins that you can take, that power that you can take with people. And we believe that if you have enough people, you can do just about anything. So far, we have engaged in a number of things over the years that have proven that to be true, right? Whether it was some stuff we did in the West Ward on Stuyvesant, we went against, what was her name? Betty Grayson. She never lost a case until she came across us, which was really nice. We organized some folks in the West Ward because they were trying to do some development there that just was not okay because it was residential. We wanted to do a pharmacy. We were like, no. We've done some stuff with canvassing to turn out the vote, which won, and it turned out the vote, which was really awesome. And right now we're at the end of one cycle of a policy campaign, and then starting the next one for May. That's specifically designed to get the vacancies as a process in the school board election. Just some backstory on that is that we recently had a school board member pass, and there's nothing on the books that says how you fill that vacancy. And so what the school board did was
Here comes the bullshit.
meet behind closed doors and picked our dear senator's aide to fill that spot.
Right.
We were just like, yeah, that seems like a terrible idea for a city that just recently got local control. Let's do something about that. And so we have, and we did, and now we're at the tail end of one phase, which was getting it part of the conversation, getting it on the desks of a number of board members, and now we're putting pressure to make sure that it happens in May. And all to say, like, will a vacancy policy fundamentally change education? No. Right, that is a tenet of what we believe. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic wand. There's nothing that's going to be like overnight. Cool, we solved equity. Great, we're going to go to Chateau. Right, like what this is about is, can we take the status quo that exists and change it pixel by pixel, piece by piece?
Yes.
And if you do that, then eventually you change the whole picture. Right? And we were just talking before, like, yeah, will we live to see that perfect picture? Probably not. But what I can do and what we will live to see is a number of those pixels changing, and we can see it at the end of the day, and I think that is the goal that we have overall.
Right.
And what's so dynamic about you is that not only do you live this and you believe this, right? You're instilling the future generation with the opportunities to see somebody, right, who lives this and believes at eighth grade. Because to me, that's that turning point. That 13 and 14, I tell people, most of my friends are who they were at 13 and 14. Like, seriously, barring traumatic experiences that make you really check yourself and change yourself. But even that, because when I look at those 13 and 14-year-olds, the guys that might get caught up in the streets still are who they are, right? Like, they get caught up in the streets. They're not. It's not that they're still not good guys.
Well, first
that
of all,
would
you just said
take
that
care
as
of
a
other
point.
people, would love people, right? They just
You
chose.
said be who they are, so you're right. Who they are ain't got nothing to do with being in the streets.
Being in the streets, exactly.
It's the
Exactly.
we're talking about character and how people are.
And if you was a shiesty and somebody who was stealing at 11 and 12 years old and 13, you don't change, more than likely when you get older, you the guy who's still stealing and doing that until you get you.
Or to your point, you get in front of a teacher or educator who a light bulb hits you,
That's
and
right.
then it sends you off to another
That's
path.
right. Amen.
Because so many people who just didn't get caught,
That's
you
right.
know, and they got the right light bulb that hit them.
Yeah.
And they hit. So talk to us a little more about.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Where you going with that energy and double back a little, man? Because you got to remember, man. We're speaking to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I
so
appreciate
everybody
the
doesn't
push.
really know what we're saying, similar to this or this one or that one. Because once again, this is not just about the city of Newark. This is about the whole nation, the whole world, and there's people in other parts of this country, this state, that don't really understand what continues to keep them in certain positions and situations.
So how about
And a
you
lot of
frame it
is
too?
that.
Let's frame it and then bring them into it, right? We had the death of a school board member in the
Well, no, I just want
in
him
the
to
state of North.
I just want him to clarify how he's speaking because he's speaking too general. Like,
But let me frame it. Let me frame it to give it a little.
I mean, not general.
Okay.
You're speaking to a certain. Like,
I'm speaking as if I'm talking to you.
Yes, we all
You know what's going on, but there's a general audience
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
There was a death of a school board member in the largest city in the state of New Jersey,
Yes.
right? So it's the largest school district
Yes.
in the state of New Jersey, right?
The largest.
The largest school district. in the state.
$1.7 billion budget, right?
Okay, $1 billion budget, right?
I ain't saying again.
That just received local control.
That's right. What, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah,
Two.
just
I
about.
mean, 1.5.
Well,
they got the
1.5.
The state still, yeah.
Yeah, but the
Yes.
official
After they got up for probation.
to
and all
make
that
the
good stuff,
decisions about 1.5, right? So immediately when we come back into local control, when we have established rules and things like this, right? There was a death of a valued member we all respected, loved, right? And then there was a process that was pushed upon the public that was not operated in the front of the public, right? The transparency that we asked for as we fought for local control, all of us together, right? So we want it back. We need it back. We should all be back together for local control. This is what we need. Not for selected groups to then disenfranchise the voters by being able to make backroom deals for selection process.
And which I'm asking people across the landscape to understand how, unfortunately, this could be happening in your backyard.
Right.
Because when you control a $1.7 billion, we're talking about 1 of 9, right? When you have other votes, right, already on that board, so you add another, you just place somebody else on that. Now you can be controlling that $1 billion plus.
Right.
For your people, for your own friends, starts the cronyism, the nepotism, all the issues that got us into state control. And so then the reason for the need,
Right.
is that need not only, so a guy like me, I'm online, I team up with a guy like Roberto Cabanas, Dr. Leah Owens, and others who are trying to move different things and understanding, like, hey, we have an energy, like, this is not fair, somebody needs to see it. And Need says, no, we're going to start a call to action. And that's where I want you to take over from there, because I wanted to frame it for everybody. Because I think that call to action was very important, right? This social media and all that was good, but when the call to action really said, this is something we can do.
Yeah. And we'll also want to build on that frame because it gets to like a principle of need that we believe. In that frame, to add to a larger audience, thank you for the clarification, is that when that vacancy occurred, we looked to the bylaws to say what's next. There's nothing there. There's nothing that exists. The last bylaw that existed was when the state got to decide, because the state had control of our district. So as soon as the state let off the reins, it's our turn. A lot of those policies went out the window. So there's no policy there. And so, if there's nothing...
This is actually current then.
Yeah. If there's no policy on the bylaws, you then look to the law, right? In New Jersey, the education law is 18A, all right? 18A-12 says, there's a lot of stipulations. The last thing says the school board gets to decide. That's all it says. And because that's all it says, right? Because that's all it says, what you see is typical of unmitigated, unregulated power in that you have the worst decision-making process possible. Out of view, without any input from the public whatsoever.
Meanwhile, during this time, the school board president, when we move into the public portion, where people could voice their opinions about this, right? The month before, she states, here comes the bullshit. On the record. So what's bullshit? The fact that you're cutting a side deal behind the doors to bring your friend in over a $1.7 billion budget? What's the bullshit? that we want to actually talk to you, the fact that we know that you're going to fill this seat with a friend.
Let me ask you a question, because just even just to talk about just history, as a former councilman, you actually, I don't know if you were there, but wasn't there energy when the council had a situation where they had to fill a seat, and you know, was some type of weirdness in that energy?
The argument was about the next highest vote getter. So that's what the argument was about.
My point, where I was going with that, where this is
because that goes back to what the people wanted, right? So we go back to the next highest vote getter, but that's not good enough now. Because the people who use that to get in power, the mayor and these people who use that for him to fill Donald Tucker's seat and get appointed, not elected, it was good enough then. Now he's silent on the issue. And you know what Dr. King said when you become silent on the issue. The moment you become silent about things that matter, our lives begin to end. So the lives of our children began to end the moment the mayor was silent about filling a seat of power over $1 billion budget and resources going to our children.
That's interesting. And then wasn't there something else too that happened in regards to the election of the superintendent for the city, and there was somewhat of an energy around that.
Again, silent again. We heard from the Senator Terrance Ruiz holding up the Senate hostage, and the mayor was silent. Mr. Black Power, Mr. Independent, Mr. For the People. But you know what it is? Because it's politically suicide for any mayor to deal with education. That's why mayors always try to stay away from education. They don't want to deal with it because you can't win or lose. But when you're in there to win and lose and perpetuate term after term after term after term, then you'll play that game. If you're in there to change the dial just the slightest little bit, you shake it up. So they can talk whatever they want about Cory Booker, but he owned Newark public education while he was here. Owned it. And not near mayor since then or before there will try to own it, because none of them want to put that on them, because it's not really what the core that they care about. They care about politics and continuing the political dynamics, not furthering the system. Whether if you change it the slightest, and Cory's changed the system dramatically.
Because you said something that was interesting. I heard this before too, that a lot of politicians don't like to touch education. Is it because education always failing?
Exactly. And then when
I'm saying and the most way back, we're talking about graduation rate was 30%, 40%. Now it's up 50, 60. You know, so, but it's like, wait a minute, back.
But the most hypocritical,
touch it.
Right.
The most hypocritical thing about the argument is then study where they all send their children. They make sure that their children have the best opportunities in the world. Will open up. There's a Netflix documentary on the wealthy being able to create opportunities for their children to go to colleges, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're not telling me local elected officials who have sway don't get their kids into the magnet schools, don't get their kids into the best Catholic schools, don't leverage relationships to get their kids scholarships to these other schools, while they tell you to keep your kid right there.
Right.
Because see, Shavar said this and everybody thought it was crazy, but I think it's something that really should be examined. Where did the mayor send his kids to go to school? Come on. Everybody says Shavar don't pick on his kids. But what's good enough, he would rather keep every kid under his control in Newark public schools. But where did he send his kids when he had the opportunity? So let's stop this argument. Because everybody just wanted to pick on Shavar. Oh, don't talk about his kids. We're not talking about the kids. We're talking about the options that he chose for his own children. And why is that not good enough for every other child in the city of Newark?
And something that you said just right at the end is like, let's stop this argument, right? Let's stop this argument about choice and about options. And then my follow-up question is, who is making that argument? And why are they making that argument? Because to your point, we have a lot of people who believe in high-quality education here on various sides, but then you throw in a charter. You throw in something, that's when they're like, no. Oh, no, we can't do choice, we can't. And I'm just like, do you want high-quality ed for all? Like, what do you actually want, right? And we had talked about a house divided amongst itself cannot stand. We do that to ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
We do that to ourselves. Like, that is the one thing that I have come across over and over and over again. I'm like, I hear you talking about community, but then I disagree with you, and then all of a sudden, I'm not a community anymore. I'm some, an outsider that doesn't know anything. It baffles me how quick disagreement turns into disowning, and then we get upset that we can't organize collectively to do something better.
Let me tell you what I dealt with. I'll tell you straight up what I dealt with. The fact that I chose to go, because my parents didn't choose to do this, right? I went to Harriet Tubman. That's what I was spoiled. I was lucky and fortunate that my father worked for the mayor at the time. So Harriet Tubman, which wasn't my district school, right? Mm-hmm. I could go to because of my connections. But my friends went to Carver. That we fight every day over that empty building to make sure Sikh and the kids can stay there. But my friends literally went there when Carver was failing every last one of my friends, dead or in jail. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's the story of me growing up on Leslie and Shaw, and me getting the opportunity to go to Harriet Tubman. Every Short Hills Mall shooting, 2 of the kids that grew up in my neighborhood. Okay? 2 grew up played every day, slept in my house, know my mother, everything. So let's not play this game. Went to Carver. This is literally that serious for me, right? Mm-hmm. So I get to go to Harriet Tubman. My vice principal at the time, Theodore Hoover, puts me in his Maxima, drives me to Morristown because he sees me getting in trouble because the work wasn't challenging me enough, and was like, yo, I want you to take this test for the school. And me, when I got to the school, because they had so much grass, and they had, the biggest thing that got me, they had snack time. They had real snack time with the little orange juices with the cartons and real snacks, right? And
he said little orange juices, but he was like this.
Right.
He said this. But that's over there. That's school. That's little for them.
And at lunchtime, you stuffing. At snack time, you stuffing extras in your pocket. And so I'm going on a daily visit, and they telling me, don't stuff your pockets. This is what we do. Because when you're in class, you sneak, blah blah blah. Then we got lunch. Lunch is family style dinner. We sit around, have a real There's a chef back there. There's no processed meat, chef cooking.
No lunch aids.
Okay. Each grade level serves the table based upon, and you rotate where you sit because you get to know everybody, the other students, right? This is this is
the Poconos.
Everything is immaculate, right? No, he's right. Everything is immaculate. I'm sitting there saying, oh my God, why wouldn't I want to come here? And everybody thought it was because of my father. No, that was because that man, Theodore Hoover, who went on to be a great educator with the Newark Public Schools, saw something more in me. That then let me, the headmaster of my middle school there, said, my son goes to this all-boys school up the road. I think it's perfect for you. Got me in there. Got me to Villanova. As soon as I came home, first thing they tried to do, the mayor and his crew, first thing he ain't from here. He went to all them private schools. He a sellout. What backfired on him when they start going through the hood and realizing I've been in the streets more than you, bro. Because when you went to Howard, all you did was that black protesting and all that. I really be in the streets, transforming lives of brothers and sisters that I went to school with, trying to save them. Because for me, I was never the smartest one of my crew. I was actually in the middle. I never was the smartest. I was a little bit athletic, but in terms of smarts and stuff, my brother is he can pick up anything. So many of my... So for me to be I'm good and they're not good, I was like, nah, I gotta come back and save everybody. That was my mission. Everybody. Use 1 degree to save everybody. They're elitists that think they're better than everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm really still out here trying to save everybody because I believe we can. And I believe what Tommy does at the age that he gets him, that spark that he can put in them, can be that turning point. That's why I salute Tommy so much, because the things that he does is not from a teaching perspective. It's from the core and the fabric of who he is.
Right.
And that's we don't need permission, and he's teaching that, and he's using education, because the only freedom that I have been able to gain, me per se, was through my education.
Right. And Tommy, just speak on, because you've been teaching 10 years, and how many in Newark?
This will be year 9.
Year 9 in Newark. I'm sure you still...
Shout out to his first spot, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Elizabeth. School 20.
Just speak about some of the lasting relationships that you still currently hold with some of the students that you were able to inspire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes. Speaking of Elizabeth, right? There are 2 students there. One of them ended up making some decisions, went to jail, came out, had a kid. Asked me to be the godfather for his kid, and I was like, "All right, that sounds great. When's this happening, etc." So like, one of them there, another one, I see all the time. Great connection there. And then when I came to Rise, just that is the community that we built, right? Like everyone is there because you love to work with kids, and any kid in front of you. Even if they're pain in the butt at sometimes because they're 13, right? Like you still love them. You still love them no matter what, and that has lasted. I started there a long time ago. Just a number of kids that I still contact with, stay in contact with. They come back to visit Rise. They do panels. They do like college panels, high school panels. If ever I need to move, they're there to help me, which is nice. I've got a nice little small army there. Football games, etc. I have some kids that are in the army right now. Whenever they come back, we always go out to eat. We always do Buffalo Wild Wings. Whenever we had some that went off to college. I probably shouldn't share this, but we were down in Spain. They weren't 21, but I was like, Chino, they're about to go to college, and he's like, I got something for you. It was water, but those experiences, right, really keep me alive in the work, and I know that like at the end of the day, whenever we have kids coming back, whenever I get like the other day, just like, hey, wanted to check in with you. I have one kid that's like in Ohio, and he sent me this picture with his girlfriend. He's just like, I want you to know that I'm happy. And like that stuff, you just carry with you. You carry with you at all times. You get to know their families. You see their families out and about whenever you go out here. And that is why I also wanted to move and live here. Right, I think it's really important that teachers live where they work, and so that you can see families, you can see community, you can build it. And for me, like that's also why I do get involved. Right, I plan to grow old here. I plan to get a house here, and I want to make sure that that here as Newark is better 10, 20 years from now, that the kids who are in school right now who are going to run this city are well educated and have all of the experiences necessary to make great decisions, so that when I am old and gray and, well, I guess not gray, but when I'm older, we have a city that is doing something great, and that is because kids had great access to great education, because at the end of the day, that's what they deserve.
So one of the things that I want to salute Rise about is because, again, I go back to the fact that I've never saw another kid leave George Washington Carver and end up at Villanova, whatever path that they took, right? But there's a kid in my neighborhood that went through the KIPP school system, and he's at Villanova. And his father posts pictures of picking him up from Villanova. And that shit almost makes me cry. Because I know his father. His father's a longshoreman, great father. His mother, great mother. They raised their kids the right way, put everything they can. And because we fought for opportunities, his son didn't have to leave our community to end up where I ended up, and probably better than me and further. And where I had to go and leave my community just for the hope of it. But those options weren't there when I was his age.
The sad thing is, real talk, if you was doing it and you was going to St. Patrick's or St. Anthony's or Patterson Catholic doing it for basketball scholarship, you wouldn't have been a sellout in your community.
No, right. No.
But because you did it for academic prowess, well, your community around you made sure, like you said, Mr. Thurman, your dad, everybody, your mom, everybody who was around you helped you in that environment and in that community. But the sad thing is we don't celebrate us in a level where our black and brown and our poor people, they celebrate in the fact that academic prowess is where a lot of us...
Let me tell you why I love Hawthorne Avenue. Because when I was 13, I could literally talk to guys on the corner who were selling drugs about stocks, and they were early starting their stock portfolio. And one day I used to get picked on by a group of kids every day, like when I got... Because I used to take the train to school, and like I was living with my mother. And so I didn't really want my mother coming to get me from the train at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, right? Like, it was like, so I take the 27. So now I'm grown, like I'm literally taking a 5 o'clock train, a 5 o'clock bus train to Morristown, then on the reverse commute, taking like a 5:30 train home to get home at 6:30 to get on a 7 o'clock, running to get to that 7:15 because I don't want to miss the 27, to then get off the bus and get harassed because I'm wearing a blazer and a tie. Like literally getting harassed by the local cats, right? I remember one day the older cat said, they used to like start walking me home, like walk me to the corner, and then like when I got off the bus, like they just make sure I was alright. Like, and then like, cause they just see me, cause I, like, you know when you're in school, they give you all them books. Like, so I literally had a book bag so heavy of college level books. Like if you push me, I'm spinning, cause my book bag just sticking out.
Right.
Yeah, you got 20 pounds on your back.
And it's like straight funny, like the funny they surround me, like start pushing me, like
you got
like
khakis on.
like like so now I'm just swaying around because of this weight. Then I got my gym bag because I was at like a sport or something like that. So now I'm carrying that too, right? And they used to like jump me, little straight jump me, because I was just straight because I was smart. And like the older cats knew I could fight, and they'd be like, "Yo, why you don't ever fight back?" So one day, old boy told me, he walked me home. He said, "Listen, I can't be here every day to walk you back. You really got to stick up for yourself. You really got to fight back." He's like, because I love what you're doing, but I might not be here to protect you one day. And I need you to keep going. That shit changed my life. I got off the bus the next day. I took the biggest one. This fool had a hoodie on. And I promise you, all the anger in my life for everybody who picked on me, I pulled that hoodie over his head and I beat the shit out of him. The rest of them kept running. And I never had to fight my way home off that train. And you know, you tired as hell, mentally drained, physically drained, and now I gotta fight. So that's why I never really wanted to fight.
And I like the fact that our community, and I'm talking about the children that obviously was, you know, harassing you. And I went to Catholic school and I got it too, but you know, I fought because I didn't have nobody walk me on. So you're right, I got jumped 2-3 times, and it's okay now, boy. I'm gonna get one. He gonna tell the rest of them, dude, I'm not going first.
That's why I picked the biggest one. That's why I picked the biggest one.
But you know where I hurt from is for the fact that the children there in that community didn't really get to see what we were being given. You know, like I you know my story too. But my mother full her business and paid for me out of her pocket to go to Catholic school, and I tore them upside down. So inside that school, I'm one way. I ain't with this. I'm with y'all, but I come home getting bullied, like you said. But the thing is, that community of children didn't know. No, we were the one. No. We were the LeBrons. We were the opportunities too. Why? Because if we come home and when we come out of this education, then we start businesses, we start opportunities. Yeah. We bring y'all in.
Absolutely.
None of us could see that in community, and I think that is why it's so important what your work you doing. That's why I'm bringing it to you. Amen. As far as the liberation of information you share.
That's
right. You done traveled to Iowa. Virtually, we traveled to Massachusetts. And one thing I know about you what I talk about all the time. The game is to be sold, not to be told. You flip it like we do. You flip it. We give the game away. We don't charge other people for it.
That's right.
So I thank you for being
You make it cool to be smart in the hood, Tommy. Mm-hmm. You guys make it cool for 8th graders because they don't have to go out and lose their culture. They can have their culture and be smart and have another group of people to be around that understands we going somewhere.
And with Tommy taking, and please jump in there, is where as much as you work with those babies, and pardon me for calling y'all babies young Skywalkers, but you know y'all Jedis, I see y'all power, I get it. But Tommy don't just work with the 8th graders; he works with their parents. He work with their parents and other parents because he obviously worked with me, parents engaging parents. We 100% behind what they do and need, but it didn't come just because we want to fight. It came because the organic energy of really what you want to bring to the table. And it ain't just about organizing and bringing people together. It's about teaching us.
Yes.
It's about bringing us together to not just put on a T-shirt, not just put a sign out, and we about to kick down doors. No, we can have the signs and the shirts in the corner. We come and knock it on the door because we know what to talk about. Right. We know what's going on. We know that you ain't got all the food and all the money out on the table, but we know now because we know power where it's at. You know what I'm saying? We know exactly where y'all hiding it at now, and that's what this is about. Right. It's about the liberation of our people because, like you said earlier, people will take advantage of our ignorance. Mm-hmm. And let's be clear, I'm not here to blame nobody for why we ignorant. Yeah. I'm blaming the fact that you still ignorant. Like, that's the hit. I've been on 16 years for prison. I'm not in the same place I am mentally, physically, or emotionally. Yet it came because like you said, action. And that's why I'm glad what you bring to the table, Tommy. You bring the fact that after you give us the information, after you help the parents, after you help the student, you want to get down with the smoke. Okay, now we all know what we gonna do. You don't just want to teach, talk, and and y'all go out there. And, no, that's that professor. You know, like who's gonna deal with the business professor or the cat out there getting that money?
Right.
That's like, I ain't going to class, bro. Tommy got you come to class, but after class, we going out there organizing. We about to go out there and liberate. We about, Tommy a socialized when we use on. Okay. Tommy don't have a problem with get that 2 feet, boy. He got that 3 steps boy. I seen it.
But that's the power of Marion Barry, right? That was the power of Marion Barry. He took care of the business, and he still socialized with and made everybody feel good in DC, right? And took care of the business. So no matter what people that ain't what we know, right? We gonna vote back in the man, and I'm not saying you go that far in your social. I'm not saying it's that great, but I'm saying that I believe the true leaders have that balance because what people see is the human in you. They see Tommy's not pretending to be anything that he's not, and he's being real. And that's why
I'm consistent. Cause that's how we stay. Cause all realness, like you said, you a teacher, educator, and I support that. But our connection came because you're consistent with the organizing and the deliverance of information. Yeah. Because a lot of people like to organize and bring people together all day, every day, but they don't want to let them know what's going on. So you just brought a whole bunch of sheep, and you want to be my shepherd. Negative.
Right.
Nah, we all gonna be shepherds out here now.
And to Tommy's credit, he took the time to learn where he was, learn his environment, study the history, and respect the people here. And then
he gets down on learning. He really knows what's going on.
And he's a student too, because he's come to energies that I've been doing and other people trainings, and he'll come to that and support and sit in the classroom just like everybody else. And that's why we need leaders like that, because that's really why we want to give you your roses, real here, real time. We don't want to wait till you become the next great thing. You write 6 books, and I'm going to tell you right now, tell people right now who you are as a leader and as a person, or people who support your energy because you're giving back just as much as you ask them.
And we're 100% behind this call to action to change the policy. We saw there was an issue. We saw that there wasn't something that was fair for the people to be involved. Came up with a call to action, and now we're asking people to execute.
Because we're asking today.
That's right.
We don't have to ask.
No.
Because we don't need permission.
No.
That's true.
And
we're asking because we're community and we don't come together and ask.
And I'm going to throw something out there.
We won't stay
I will throw something out there, Tommy. If you want to put your energy and our energy beyond holding people accountable for this, I'm 100% behind it. We can put people, you guys have been leading the call to action. If they don't want to do it, we can. There's other ways to have them.
Oh, yeah. No,
and you like canvassing. I like canvassing. See, I like canvassing to me, and I want to be clear. There's effective ways to canvass in COVID. Mm-hmm. I've done it in several different places.
Hollywood.
So we can canvass during COVID and make sure our people are safe, and you'd be surprised, 6 feet away, how many seniors were waiting for somebody to come to that door to talk to them.
To that point, how many people just want to be engaged, right? There's this really good book called Rules for Revolutionaries.
3 minutes, you got it all.
I was going to say, there's this really good book called Rules for Revolutionaries. It's written by the people that ran Bernie Sanders' campaign. And their number one chapter is people want a big ask. They want to get involved. They never have a place to do it. They never have a platform. They never have somebody that's saying, like, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Like, people crave that. It's why when you do canvass methodically, like you win your elections. It's why when we canvassed in the West Ward for the Type 1 district that we did, 1, we won that issue on the ballot, but 2, every single district that we canvassed had an increase of voter turnout between 23% and 63%. Right? People want to be engaged. People want to have somebody ask them to do something, especially when it's about their city, especially if you've been here for generations, especially if you're sick and tired of the BS that happens. Right? People want to do that, which is why, to your point, I love canvassing. I love having the house meetings that we do and just inviting anybody possible to like come and share your thoughts and be engaged and see where we can build from there. The thing that I love about where we are with NEED in this coalition for this policy is that in that room you have people who on some issues totally divided, right? Totally divided. But for this issue, they're just like, okay, cool, that's neat. Let's see what we can do here together. And I think it's something that hasn't been done before like this. And to the forces at B that don't want to see it happen, it's scary, right? What other group has written a policy, got it to the governance committee, got it talked about on the public record for the business meeting? When was the last time that actually happened? Right? I'm just like, that is what we are selling, right? And it is scary for people who cannot stand that, and for people who do not want to see it happen, right? If I'm somebody who has benefited from a structure of power that is unquestioned, that is unmitigated, and has been the sole owner of all decision making, and suddenly I got this group of people who, like, I never thought they would come together and are just providing something, yeah, that's going to be a little fucking scary.
So
right?
let me tell you,
it's going to be really scary.
Let me tell you the trick behind this, right? The trick behind this, that the thing is, squash media, squash the conversation, because as long as people aren't engaged, as long as nobody's knocking on doors informing the people, they can pull all the shenanigans that they pull.
Right.
And that's why we have to take our message directly to the people. That's it.
That's it. That's all, and we don't need permission. Good shit, fellas.